I'm sorry, everybody, but we've been in a recession for like 8 months. What do you think about Mara in 2 years? The answer to that, my knee-jerk answer to that question is like, ask me in 45 days. I think we'll know what's going on with them. But I will tell you, that's been my answer for 10 months now. So it's getting a little frustrating. I did not buy Marathon today. I was going to actually buy Marathon today, and I didn't do it. I gotta believe you would think that 2 years from now, they're going to be where they wanted to be. If you guys remember, originally it was going to be like 13.3 exahash in the middle of 2022 and then 23.3 exahash by the end of 2022. Well, they didn't do anything that even slightly resembles that. I expect them to say that they're still at 7 exahash. I think they have 2 more exahash set up, all ready to go, ready to be energized, which would get them to 9. But based on their production, they certainly did not plug those in December. So if they did, then they did an awful lot of self-curtailment or had the unluckiest month in history. Cleanspark is green today. Yes, we had lots of green. We had a big green day for one time. Still some red. Core Scientific. I'm not sure if anybody's in Core Scientific. I feel like, not financial advice, but you guys know my feelings on that one. I think that even if they survive, my sense is there's just going to be nothing left over for the shareholders. So, and that just seems to be the way so many of these reorganizations work out. And they borrowed, they borrowed a lot of money. And that is why I think you'll notice that so far to date, we only have one bankruptcy, and it's Core Scientific. So something else is going on out there. We'll talk about it on the stream today. I think there's some money behind the money that knows something that's coming, because now, Core Scientific got themselves $1 billion upside down, and that was too much, but look at what just happened to Argo blockchain. They're up. I'm going to go to their chart. They're up.
Hey, everyone, I'm back.
George is back. Obviously, this has been a monstrously volatile stock, but, they halted trading 2 different times in the last 2 weeks. They halted trading on Tuesday, because they said they had an announcement to make. We were all thinking, well, maybe, I guess that's probably going to be it for them. Well, no. That was not it. So in a week, from their low to their high, they were up 248%. From their low to their close today, they were up 168% in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trading days. So, this is, I did a video on this, and I got a bunch of very wonderful comments that said this video is worthless. So thanks to all those people. But that was my point of this video, is there's more to come. And sure enough, here we go. Here's a day where, Argo's up another 20% today. And it wasn't just Argo. If you look, Cypher was up 24% today. Iris, 13%. Argo, 19%. And these are some of the smaller moves. We're going to, I think you can expect massive volatility. So that's one of the things I want to talk about. I think trading in 2023 for me is going to look a little different than 2022 did.
I hope it looks a lot different. No offense, kid. I hope it looks a lot different for a lot of people. You set yourself up like that one. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen, that is the truth. We were down. I'll do a final thing. I think we were down over 80% on my 10K portfolio. And, that was the worst, absolute worst strategy in the absolute worst year possible. And although I was not down 80% in my personal portfolio, it was not a great year. I know a couple of you guys have told me you managed to make money through all this. So that's outstanding. Drop a comment in the chat if anybody who had a positive year.
Who thought that the market would be what it's been? What'd you say? It was the third worst market in 50 years?
I was reading an article. If you use the 60-40 rule, which is the old, investors' rule of thumb, 60% equities mirroring the S&P 500 and then 40% bonds, I believe this was the either the worst year or the second worst year in the history of that trading strategy. So
that's crazy.
Now, younger people probably don't use that trading strategy at all. Bonds are not really in for retail traders, but if you have a 401k or if you're old school, that was the rule of thumb forever. So, if you did that, you got wrecked this year. If you just sat in the S&P, you got wrecked. If you were in the NASDAQ, everything's down across the board. But what worst of all are the small cap high growth stocks are absolutely they're at depression level year this year. So if you shorted them, you made money.
So speaking of depression, are we in a recession, Tom?
I believe that we are in a recession. So that's another thing that made me laugh. I read another article today, and they're like, oh, we have an inverted yield curve, and, that tends to be a signal or foreshadowing that there's going to be a recession. It's like, I'm sorry, everybody, but we've been in a recession for like 8 months. I don't know who decided we were going to change the definition of what a recession is, but just go to the grocery store, go to the gas pump, you'll know this has been brutal. And if you've been in the stock market, that we're deep into a recession. Is it going to last a couple more quarters? I bet it will, but it's not exactly like a foreshadowing that we have an inverse yield curve and maybe we're going to go into a recession. That's Captain Obvious statement of the year.
I need your opinion on something because everybody's kind of asking the same question. Christian, sorry, I have that. JD and WLM. How often should companies report, like for an example, CleanSpark? How often should companies report when they have a rough 5 days or a couple, bad days with production? I mean, is it because of this age of technology? Should they be reporting more or doing a press release more often than what they're currently doing?
I feel like unless something dramatic has happened, there are a lot of companies in the Bitcoin mining sector in particular, in this industry, this monthly reporting that everybody is now doing, and that was kind of adopted slowly throughout, starting last year, a few people did it. By the end of this year, every company that wasn't kind of on their way to going out of business was doing a monthly operational update. So that, I think, is the bare minimum. There's absolutely no reason. This industry lends itself to just telling everybody. And honestly, they could all do it on the first day of the month, just like Bitfarms does every single month. They know what they did, right? But if they don't know what they did on the first day of the month for last month, then that's a problem. So I would say everybody who's doing once a month. Now, if something dramatic happens.
Sorry, I'm reading the comment. Martin, I can't afford it. Sorry. Go on, Tom.
If something dramatic happens, particularly, if you're core scientific and you're reporting every day and all of a sudden you go from 50 to 30, Core stays very active on their Twitter, and that's a stock I'm staying away from anyway at this point, unfortunately. But I think if you report once a month, but you can't just report. You got to really let people know. Like, if you had a very inefficient month, when some of these companies report and their numbers make no sense at all, they got to go a step deeper and say, just tell us what happened. Because you guys know, as investors, if you don't tell us, we are going to assume the worst possible case scenario is going on, wherever our imagination will take us. So they're better off to just let us know, because it's no worse than what we're imagining.
Yeah, it's usually worse. Well, I mean, the great example would probably be Marathon. Oh, and Tom, so Gareth, to answer your question, Tom, I think probably Tom could do an interview with Michael Saylor, I bet you, if he wanted to. But Fred, they pawned us off on a lower level person. And Tom said, I'm not interested in doing an interview with you peons.
So I can go back to them and specifically say, and I didn't do this, so I can. They have a director of communications or whatever the case may be, and I just know nobody at this point with Marathon, nobody wants to hear from that person. No offense to that person. I'm sure he's a wonderful individual, but people want to hear from Fred. So I haven't responded to them, and you know, the holidays came, and I really should have responded by now. I'm gonna let them know. You know, if you're willing to put Fred on, we'd love to have you. So
I think I should jump in on that interview.
That I would like to see.
Yeah, I don't think Fred would like that. Fred, do you remember when we sat down at the Bitcoin conference last year? I was sitting here and you were sitting there.
Do you remember how you didn't do
The only thing
any
Fred
of the...
did right. You want to know what Fred did right? Tommy did one thing right, and you want to know what that was?
What?
When Bitcoin was high, he raised a ton of cash.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was hot, and a lot of people missed that opportunity like Core Scientific. They missed it by like 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yeah. Marathon raised some of the best convertible debt on pretty much almost the exact best day they possibly could have done that. In fact, I'm sure there were people furious 10 days later because if you guys remember, then they were into a scandal right away. And so, but you're right. But that leaves the door open for them to be successful. That was a huge, that's why the Marathon question is always so hard to answer. And I did do a specific video on it. And I still feel like people don't know where I stand on this. I'm very neutral on Marathon. They've set themselves up to succeed. They're just not doing it yet, and they rely on a lot of other partners to get to where they're going, and that's a part of their problem. And maybe there's an internal problem because clearly they didn't get where they were going. Or maybe they just didn't get there because Bitcoin's at $16,000, and the last thing they wanted was 23 exahash. So I think the questions... all the same questions remain on Marathon that we had at the beginning of this year. The trading year is now over, and all the same questions remain in my mind.
And ID said convertible debt is considered the worst form of raising capital.
Well, it's convertible at $79 a share, I believe, and the interest is 1%. So I mean, everybody.
I would argue that one, brother.
Everybody can have their own opinion, but I mean, I'll take anybody want to give me $800 million convertible 4 years from now at 1% interest? I'll take it.
Yeah. Especially, look at how much money we all have lost. I bet you we could put it together. But whoever that convertible debt person was, they did it at $79 a share. What was Marathon today? Would they close that time?
They're in the $3 range.
Yeah, so they're down, what, $75, $76?
But here's the kicker. They're probably going to, and I shouldn't say probably, as they sit here at $3.42, there's a reasonable chance those people are going to convert that debt to equity 2 years from now. As hard as that is to believe, right? Because that's a 25x from here. But...
and then they just get back to where even.
Right. Then they got all... yeah. Then it was just raising equity at $79 a share.
And how much did they raise?
It was like $700 million.
And I mean, who is going to get somebody $700 million on a signature bond? You know what I mean? On their signature, saying, "Oh, here we," and I bet you there's no PG on that as personal guarantee. There's no PG on this stuff.
Not on a public company.
No.
The best they're,
no.
They're
the best they got is some machines that would be worth nothing if. So that also brought up a very interesting point when Tom and I were talking, and that in business, no matter how well you plan for a business, it never goes the way you plan it. So. Because I've been saying that lately, I've been running my business. I'm playing baseball with one arm tied behind my back, and that's the hardest thing to play in baseball. But think about this. You should always, even with stock and when you're doing your investment, you should always have a most likely, a worst case, and a best case. But here's my question. Would you put your worst case where these miners are today, Tom?
Well, as you know, I try to do a worst case, most likely best case scenario, and then I, for business purposes, I try to do a break even scenario. That doesn't really make sense when trading stocks, so I don't do that. But this was worse than yes, I did a worst case scenario, and this is worse than my worst case scenario that I laid out at the beginning of this year. So I missed. I mean, that's all you can say. I can give 1,000 reasons why, but I missed. This was worse than my worst case scenario.
Why didn't you tell me to sell? Unbelievable. Why didn't you tell me to close out that freaking account?